Hey everyone. In this video, we're going over Corsair's Q3 2021 earnings review. We're going to be going over the financial results, new products they released. But before we get into the details, if you could smash the like button and if you could subscribe to the channel, it really helps the YouTube algorithm. Thanks so much. Now, as many of you already know, I have been a big fan of Corsair stock for a long time now. And in almost every video I drop, regardless of the stock, there are always comments about Corsair stock and what I think. So here's finally a chance for me to give you guys an update. Q3 product highlights. Let's just go through their presentation first, and then I'll give you a little more personal opinions on my positions and things like that. So they start off really wanting to talk about the products, and then they get into the financials. So that's what we're going to do as well. We're just going to go over their product highlights, and then we're going to go over their financials. First, they talk about the streaming camera. Now, Elgato, which is owned by Corsair, they introduced the Elgato Face Cam. First time they're getting into basically computer cams, which is a $1 billion+ market. So they point that out. They've leveraged 15 plus years of experience in video to design a camera that meets the growing needs of content creators. Now, this camera is really built for people who create content. Creators have been like the targeted audience for Elgato, which really is awesome because it moves it out of just being a gaming business of Corsair or a building PC business. They also released a gaming monitor. Corsair has never had a monitor before. It's pretty awesome that they dropped one. This is a 32-inch high refresh rate AMD FreeSync compatible gaming monitor. It's their first entry into the gaming monitor market, which by the way has a total addressable market of $4 billion+, they say. And their monitor can be controlled by their iQ ecosystem software, which is pretty cool. Next, we're talking about DDR5 memory. So Corsair has been making RAM for a while. After 7 years of DDR4, both Intel and AMD are poised to make the switch to DDR5 in 2022. New DDR5 technology launch will enable a surge of upgrades with potential increases in ASPs, which are average selling prices. We believe Corsair will be at the forefront of performance leadership with this new technology, and they expect with a strong launch in the lineup, they expect to continue market dominance in the category, which they currently have over 50% market share in all the major markets. Then we move on to their controller, their new Xbox Series X controller by Scuf. Scuf is a brand that Corsair owns as well, basically there to design controllers and things like that. That's what I've seen from them. They make these really nice customizable controllers to basically help improve gaming performance for people that really take their gaming professionally, which is what Corsair is all about, creators and gamers. Next, let's get into the financial results. Now, this is the main portion of this entire video, is to just talk about how is the business actually doing. Now, if we look here, this is going to talk about revenue, and it's going to talk about Q3 in particular, and it's also going to talk about year to date for all of 2019, 2020, 2021. Now, let's first just focus on this quarter, Q3. So Q3 2021 is down 14% year over year compared to Q3 2020. But it is an increase over Q3 2019. Now, we know 2020 was a very special year in which there was stay at home, everybody was ordering basically new gaming setups, things like that. But that said, the fact that year over year it's down is not great. Now, luckily, the investors already knew this because Corsair came out before earnings and actually guided that it was going to be lower, as well as for the rest of the year into Q4. But that said, the year-over-year pictures in the long run, if we're talking about full year to date, not just this quarter, 2019 it was $771 million in revenue. 2020 at this point of the year, $1.146 billion. And in 2021, it's actually beating 2020 as a year-to-date situation at $1.393 billion, which is 22% more year over year. Now, particularly the gamer and creator peripherals section, which is in black, is the more important section that we've been focusing on. That's up 35% year over year after already growing 74% year over year from 2019 to 2020, and now 2020 to 2021, another 35%. Now, this is not talking about this quarter. This is talking about from January 1st until the end of Q3. So that's the thing. Overall, Corsair is doing great. But specifically these last 3 months, because of problems with shipping, increased costs to make the products, all of these things have basically hurt this quarter. and they have not been able to really get as much supply, and they haven't been able to increase the price too much on the products to the consumer either. So Q3, we basically have a 14% decline year over year for the gamer and creator peripherals section, and a 15%, so similar decline in the gaming components and systems section. So when it comes to revenue, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This quarter did not do great. I'm not happy with the quarterly results. But that said, the overall picture year to date, I'm happy with 35% growth year to date if we're talking about the overall from January 1st till now. And if they can continue that growth going into 2022, 2023, there's a lot of great things to come. But quarterly Q3 was a miss, no question about it. Next, we look at gross margin. Now, 2021, as far as gross profits, year to date, again, if we're talking about the whole year, we're up 26% year over year. So this is great. And more importantly, 42% more gross profit in the gamer and creator peripherals, 15% more in the gaming components and systems. So more and more of the profits are coming from gamer and creator peripherals. But if we're just looking at Q3 this quarter, we are down 19% in the gamer and creator peripherals section, and down 22% in the gaming components and systems section of gross profit. So again, similar to revenue, gross profit, obviously revenue is down, gross profit is down year over year for Q3's quarter, but year to date, the first 9 months of the year, we're talking about $392 million in gross profit versus this time of last year, $312 million, and this time of 2 years ago in 2019, only $154 million. Gross margins are at year to date, if we're talking about the year to date margins combined everything, 36.6% in gamer and creator peripherals, the gaming components and systems, 23.8%, and a total average of 28.1%, which is increased over on all aspects, higher gross margins for year to date compared to 2020, and especially compared to 2019. So the overall trend when you're looking on the long term, again, is an upward trend on gross margins, on gross profits, on revenue. It's just this specific quarter is not doing great. I think it's largely to do with just supply constraints, getting the product over, increased costs, things like that. But I do think those things will be worked out. Now, expanding adjusted EBITDA with low capex. Adjusted EBITDA for 2021 year to date is $160 million. In comparison, in 2020 year to date would have been $140 million, and in 2019, $43 million. As far as Q3, similar picture across the board. Much less than Q3 2020 a year ago. We had $64 million in Q3, only $28 million this quarter. But that $28 million is an increase versus 2019's Q3. So as we've seen, basically the long-term picture, higher revenue, higher profits, higher margins over the long trend, but Q3 has been a miss as a single quarter. Corsair has gained market share in almost every category through Q3 2021. Q3 net revenue was impacted by availability of reasonably priced GPUs, which curtailed the demand for new PC builds and its components. Higher logistic costs, including ocean and air freight, had an impact on the Q3 margins, which resulted in gross profit margin of 25.9% for this quarter. So, net revenue up 21.6% year over year when we're talking year to date, down 14.4% year over year for this specific quarter. Gross profit down 20.8% year over year for the quarter, up 25% year to date for the whole year. Now, the last thing I'll point out on this chart is net income, which was $1.8 million in Q3 2021, which was a 95% drop year over year versus Q3 2020. So again, like all of these things, if you look at all of 2021, we had a net income $76.2 million, which is 26.7% more than all of 2020 up until this point in the year. So year to date, much higher net income. But this quarter, huge decline in net income as margins got compressed by higher costs, lower revenue, etc. So the quarter was not a great quarter, but it was pretty much baked in. That's why the stock has not really moved much today. As far as gaming components and systems for Q3 results, The main impact was basically a GPU shortage, which caused retail prices to surge. It was 150% plus up from MSRP. This caused many enthusiasts to hold off building a performance gaming PC, and they believe that GPUs becoming more available over the next few quarters there will create this pent-up demand for building high-performance gaming PCs, and Corsair has managed to grow market share in Q3, even with all this going on. When it comes to the gamer and creator peripherals, they saw that Q3 net revenue was impacted by IC shortages, which caused basically their premium high-value products to be in tight supply, so supply constrained, and Q3 segment gross profit margins were impacted by increased logistical costs, so their shipping costs, things like that, as well as reduced sales in premium products for Q3 2021 versus 2020. So that's basically the situation on this specific quarter. When we're looking out for financial outlook forward, they said this: we have responded to the difficult sourcing and shipping environment by building inventory in hubs closer to our customers, but it has been difficult to pass costs to our customers. We still expect good growth for 2021, but the various challenges are constraining it to closer to our initial expectations for the year. We believe that the actual demand environment remains good, and that once this difficult environment is behind us, we can return to our targeted growth and profitability targets. We have adjusted our 2021 outlook based on the current conditions. This was all said by Andy Paul, who is the CEO of Corsair. Now, when we go into their actual financial guidance numbers, we can basically see that earlier in the year, they basically guided the whole year for a certain expectation, and they increased guidance as they were doing extremely well in the first half of 2021. But now they have to pull back to their original guidance, which is still great and still guiding for revenue growth versus 2020, but just not as much as that increased guidance that they boosted it a couple quarters ago. So for 2021 as a whole, they're expecting $1.825 to $1.925 billion of revenue. They're expecting adjusted operating income between 180 to 195 million, adjusted EBITDA between 190 to 205 million. Now, when it comes to the balance sheet for this company and their debt, they basically in Q3 did some really great things for long-term investors. One of those things was refinancing long-term debt. They substantially reduced the interest rate. They doubled the revolver to 100 million. They reduced outstanding debt by 24 million to get it down to 250 million on face value. And based on their current net leverage ratio, their interest rate for the long-term debt is LIBOR plus 1.25%. So cash, $71.9 million in cash and cash equivalents, $250 million in debt. So their net debt after taking out the cash is $178.1 million. Now, Corsair stock for year to day from January 1st till now is down almost 28%. It's trading for around $25.08. As for the day today on the earnings, it didn't really move much. It was up in the morning, then it came right back down. And it's basically, but good thing is it didn't crash down. It was already expected to have pretty bad earnings, so the stock was kind of flat today. Now, as for me personally, I still think Corsair stock is a huge buy. I think it's extremely cheap at 15 times multiple. I do not have the same position I used to have. I had a massive position in Corsair. I still have some in some accounts that I have, but unfortunately, there were some positions I really wanted to build, and I had to get the capital from somewhere. So I didn't just sell some Corsair, but I've sold plenty of other stocks that were in my portfolios to build a very concentrated high position in a couple other names that I wanted to build, and I needed to access the capital. So I do have much smaller position in Corsair than I used to have. That said, my conviction in the stock has not changed. I do believe it's a great deal at 25. And if I had extra cash to be able to have as big of a position that I want to have in these other companies and still have a big position in Corsair, I would do it. But you got to pick and choose where you want to put your capital at the end of the day. So if you are interested in Corsair and you're curious if I think it's a buy, I do think it's a buy. I do think the long-term outlook remains intact. The thesis remains intact. I do think there are just supply constraint issues for now. But that said, I do think overall, year over year, it will continue to have growth in the many years ahead and higher margin growth if that. Now, if you made it to the end of the video, please smash the like button. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely subscribe. I appreciate all your support. Definitely hit me in the comments if you have any questions. Until next time.